Free from Stutter Success Stories is a series of interviews with people who reached freedom from stuttering or are on their way there. Freedom from stuttering. It's when stuttering is not holding you back in your life. It can be either achieving fluency, real progress on that path, or it can be reaching your goals and making a difference despite stuttering. So we're gonna press for specifics. How are they doing that? What can we learn from them? And what can we apply in our life? Today we'll talk with Cameron Raynes, a fiction writer, a prize-winning author of several books, including The First-Person Shooter, and Cameron doesn't avoid speaking, public speaking included. So let's find out how he does that. Okay, so today we're having Cameron Raynes. Hello, Cameron. Actually, we got to know each other because we are, I saw Cameron being active in the stuttering groups. Then we met on at the National Stuttering Association conference. Cameron, I wanted to talk about two big topics, actually. There are several questions to that, but two big topics. One is like stuttering and our work and career and our path, because when we got prepared or when we communicated to each other before the interview, we came to this idea that you are busy, you have many projects, engagements, and that's the first topic I want to talk about, because usually people who stutter, they struggle with work, with career, with their choice, that kind of stuff. And the second thing, you said that you've improved your speaking over the years. That's the second thing I really want to tap into to understand what exactly did you do with that. And obviously we'll talk about writing as as something that is important to you as well. So my first question: how did it come that you became a writer, and at what stage, what age you realized that you want to be a writer, or you decided to be a writer? And is there any connection with stuttering, or you think that that's just your path?
Look, I knew from about the age of 11 or 12 that I wanted to be a writer, and it was one book in particular, Colin Teely's The Fire in the Stone, that really convinced me that this would be a fantastic thing to do. Connections between writing and stuttering, I think there are a lot. I suspect most people who stutter do this. Everyone does it to a certain extent, and that is play conversations in your head. For me at least, as a person who stutters, I used to do this incessantly, because I would walk away from every interaction I had wishing I'd said this or responded to that, and I would beat myself up when I walked away from an interaction, thinking about what I should have said. And I would play these conversations in my head and do it all the time. I would spend 2 hours a day, maybe from the age of 8 onwards, playing conversations in my head that I should have had. And I think that has changed my brain. I think it has given me a capacity now specifically to write dialogue, because I've always had these conversations going in my head. If I said this, then that person said that, then what would I say, and how would I respond, and how would I pursue my argument? And so it's sort of a natural thing for me to just write dialogue. And I find when I come to writing film script, I never have a problem with the blank page because I've always got these conversations going on in my head. So there is definitely a link between writing and stuttering in relation to that. I think stuttering also makes you more observant about
Right.
people. You spend a lot of time sort of on the fringe of things, not really wanting to take the lead conversationally, especially if there's a group of people. So you are forced, I guess, into a situation where you observe people, and that also is very, very handy for a writer. There's other things
Okay.
too. Mm.
Got it. But at the same time, when I imagine a writer, and I myself have a great affinity to writing. When I think about my job as a lawyer, I mostly wrote, uh,
Mm.
correspondence, agreements. So what I did was mostly writing for some reasons.
Yeah.
So when you think of a professional writer, it seems like a person in the woods alone writing. But you say you're making some teaching, like helping with courses, doing consultancy. So you have pretty much a good load of what you do. How like so? How you manage all that? I mean, is it because your speaking improved that you can uh, and
Yeah, well, look, to start off with, I think one of the other reasons I wanted to be a writer was precisely because of that image of, being in a log cabin and being by yourself and not having to talk to anyone. Uh, that certainly was part of the attraction, and but you quickly figure out once you've had a book published that writing is the opposite of that. And in order to get your books out into the marketplace, you have to become um, uh, outgoing, and you have to put yourself into public speaking situations. Um, the so really my journey to fluency. Look, I was a covert stutterer for most of my life. From as soon as I could hide it, which was it was difficult hiding it in high school, but you still find ways to hide it. But certainly after I left high school, my energy was devoted to being a covert stutterer and hiding it in any situation I could. Um, this was the situation. This situation held for about 2 decades. It was only when I was in my mid-40s that it all came crashing down. When I was working in an open plan office as a writer for a communications company, ironically, and I found that my stutter came back worse than it had ever been, and worse than it had been, for instance, as an 8 or a 9-year-old standing up in front of a class. This was pretty unsettling and disenchanting. I had a go at returning to speech therapy, but I've never really had much success with speech therapy. And I got to the point almost where I was going to throw my job in because it was just too painful to go into work. And the breakthrough, I think, came, and I'm still not exactly sure how it all came about, but one of the breakthroughs definitely, there were two or three things that happened around about 2008, 2009. One of them was I was sitting at the bus stop after working, and to get to work it was an hour and a half by train and bus, so there was a lot of time to think, and a lot of angst during those hours. I'd finished work. I was waiting for the bus to come. I was an hour and a half away from home, and I was exhausted and dispirited, and really feeling like I couldn't stand it. much longer. And I asked myself a question. I don't know if we've a very simple question, and as soon as I'd asked it, I realised it was a very important question, and that was, what's my definition of a good day? And so as soon as I asked myself that question, I thought, my God, this is going to bring up some crap. And because I realised that my definition of a good day was one where I didn't stutter, especially in front of a stranger. And that realisation filled me with dread, because that is a pretty terrible definition of a good day. And I realised then that I really needed to do something to fix up the mess that I was in. And it took me a little time to figure it out, but within a day or two, I'd sort of stumbled upon the notion that, okay, this is my definition of a good day. What if I turn that definition upside down? What if I make it that from now on, a good day is one where I do stutter, especially in front of a stranger? And I sat with that for a while, for a couple of days, and I thought, well, if I adopt that, it means going out and either deliberately stuttering or putting myself into situations where I'm likely to stutter in front of a stranger. And that is something that I had been avoiding for 30 years, 35, 40 years, mate, nearly 40 years. I was 44, 45, and I'd been stuttering since the age of 8. So 37 years of avoiding that situation. So it took a few days to convince myself, but a few days later I went up to somebody at the bus stop and asked them which bus I needed to catch to get to the city, knowing full well that the number of the bus I needed. And that was a kind of a breakthrough moment for me, because when I did that, I realised straight away that it was definitely the right thing to be doing. And I felt a surge of power, a sense of power and delight and pride. And I don't think I stuttered when I asked the question, because I was feeling so good about it. And I came away from that situation and gave myself a pat on the back, literally an actual pat on the back. And I think that was very important as well, to make sure that I congratulated myself on these small acts of bravery. And then over the next couple of months, I made it part of my daily routine that I'd go up to someone each day, to a stranger preferably, and say something that under normal circumstances should invoke a stutter in me. But almost invariably, I found myself not stuttering. I think it was because I'd taken control of it. And I'd taken control of my stutter and taken control of the fear. And so it was remarkable. Whenever I would do this, try to put myself in a situation where I'd stutter, I would not stutter. I would be fluent in those situations. So that was pretty amazing. And then
can I ask you about this thing? So you think that it's the attitude, like being active, like I create this situation, and it's not like, it's falling on me and forcing me to react, but I am active, and that's kind of helped you to become more, like, to control and manage your speaking better. That's what you're saying.
I think that's it. I think it is that simple.
Okay.
And remember, I had a whole all of my schooling was in a situation where I would be called upon to speak, and we'd go around the class in alphabetical order, and it would get to Raynes, and I would be forced to stand up and speak. And this was the exact opposite. This was me volunteering.
Okay, but then can I ask you this? You said that you took some therapy and it didn't work. And I hear this all the time, you know, many people who got better, they say first, oh, I went through some therapy, it didn't work, but then I came to, you know, realizing that and that and that myself, and then I improved. And that goes for me as well. I say I took a therapy, it didn't work, but then I came and do it again, and it kind of didn't work. And then I kind of did it myself. But basically, I also kind of applied those principles. So do you feel that the therapy that you went through anyway somehow helped, or you think that it was absolutely, you know, if you hadn't taken it, it was the same result? So
I think it was a waste of money.
waste of money.
That's for me. That's for other people. It might be different, but I don't incorporate. As far as I can tell, and I don't incorporate any speech techniques at all.
Got it.
Apart from talking slowly, but normal conversational speed. But really, for me, it is all about volunteering. Consciously putting myself in danger, and realizing as I'm doing that I've got control of the situation.
Got it. Because usually, you know, if we talk about some skill, like, of course, like practice is everything, but it's better to have some, you know, skills, someone to show you something. So here you say that it's all about probably putting yourself into the world, being active and trying to. But did you kind of notice about yourself, like when you're more fluent, or it's all about, for you, it was all about confidence? So when you got more confident, you came to more controlling it.
Yeah, look, it's got a lot to do with confidence. And this journey I've been in from 2009 has been slow. It's not like I became fluent overnight. It's at around about the same time I joined a public speaking organisation called Rostrum. It's the oldest public speaking organisation in the world. It's Australian, and started a discipline, I guess, of going there every fortnight and taking part in the activities that the group does, including being the chairperson of the meeting, giving speeches, doing icebreakers and things like that. The first couple of years I found that really tough, and I was stuttering a lot, even though I'd initiated this new regime of going up to a stranger every day and talking. I was still stuttering a lot in 2009, 2010, 2011, and especially when I was the chairperson of the meetings. I found that really challenging, to be in control of a meeting and to have all eyes directed on me. Terrifying. And I wasn't fixed overnight. It took a few, and I'm still not fixed. I mean, I've still got the stutter, even though it's hardly ever noticeable. It's hardly ever there, but it's still there, and it will always be there. And but the volunteering and the moving towards the thing I feared, which was stuttering in front of a stranger, plus the regular fortnightly discipline of putting myself into what felt like extreme danger, being in a small meeting in an organisation that is all about good public speaking. It was terrible for the first couple of years, but I gradually grew into it and got more and more comfortable with it. And now I coach public speaking for Rostrum, and going the Speaker of the Year competition and was a finalist 2 years ago. And it's just been a complete turnaround for me. And I think rostrum's played a big part in that.
So I saw a couple of times on your Facebook, you say, I'm going there and making, again, speeches, also part of the promotion of the book, or as you said, when you write a book, you understand it's all about getting the word out about the book. You need to be public about, right? So when you think about a public speaking, what feelings do you have inside?
I love public speaking.
Oh,
It's
really?
crazy. I never feel, these days I feel at my best and my most powerful in the 10 seconds before I get up on stage to speak. I just love it.
Okay.
I love that feeling. It's it's beautiful. I love it.
But my question is, do you do any what maybe would you advise as a practical matter? Is it just creating those speaking situations, or like, do you do anything in terms of being a good speaker? Do you practice? Do you do anything at home? What do you do for that?
Look, my main piece of advice is to figure out what scares you the most and then move towards it. Let fear be your compass, as a few other people have noted on Stuttering Community. And join a public speaking group. It will be tough, and don't get discouraged. It will take years to undo the stress and the angst and the self-loathing and all the rest of it that every person who stutters naturally accumulates over the decades that they stutter. It takes a long time to unpack all that and deal with it. And there will be times where you feel like you're going backwards. My big tip is to just do it in the beginning, just once a day. Just go, put yourself in a situation that you would normally avoid. Be conscious of what you're doing. Feel the fear that it invokes, but just write it out. Put yourself in that situation. Speak to someone, or ask what bus I need to catch, or go into a shop and ask for a coffee, knowing that they're going to ask you for your name. And very importantly, congratulate yourself after you've done it. And I think that's very important. I always still give myself a physical pat on the back after I've removed myself from the situation. I don't think we recognise our own bravery, and I think people who stutter tend to see themselves as cowards. I know I did, and I spent decades feeling that I was a coward for not being able to engage as fully as I wanted to. And the truth is that we aren't cowards, that not being able to speak fluently touches all of the buttons of a normal human being around the fear of social exclusion. And we are a primate. We have a very finely tuned awareness of the possibility of being excluded from the social group. And we are also keenly aware that speech is one of the ways that we exert social power. So for a person who stutters, knowing that we can't rely on our voice instantly puts us in a situation where all of the, even people who are fluent, fear public speaking. But if you can't trust that you'll be able to get a word out, then the fear is heightened. And that fear is nothing to be ashamed of. It's completely natural. And you would have to be a robot to not feel that fear. So you have to, understanding that you aren't a coward, that these feelings are natural and that any other person would feel them, is a very important part of healing the self. And you need to reinforce that you are actually brave, and you need to build in a sense of courage and an appreciation of the fact that you are a courageous person, and just in harm's way helps you to re-establish a sense of your own bravery.
Yeah, I love that. And also probably about the same thing. You kind of answered that, but just to touch that again. So I love about you that, like, again, the work of a writer seems like being, you know, in a shell. And what you're saying, that your path was to get open, be active, and that really helped to feel better as a person, right? And also about your fluency as well. So I hear all the time that internal conversation for people about their career choice, about their work, like whether I go with that path of less resistance and choose like a work where I don't need to speak, or maybe or kind of pursue what I really want. But that's you know, there's a lot of fear in front on that road. So you kind of answered that. So would you say that how would you tap into that internal conversation many people are having? And you know, probably you and I also had that conversation. So you had a chance not to go to promote your book, right? Or not to go, or not to participate in those, you know, engagements where you have to speak. So
yeah, look, sorry, I missed the very last bit of that, but I got the gist of what you were saying. Look, at the moment, I'm working as a teacher at the University of South Australia. I teach contemporary Aboriginal issues and history. So at the moment, I'm doing that, and that is part-time work. And I'm got a consultancy at the moment with an architectural firm that is doing a redevelopment of a park for one of the local town councils. And I've been engaged as a writer, and I'm working with the architectural team and with graphic designers to come up with a story that can be embedded into elements of the redeveloped park. And I really enjoy that work and working. It's a little bit stressful, and I feel like it's I'm stepping into danger, that I'm going into a room to discuss ideas with a bunch of people that I don't know very well. So there is constant work that needs to be done to gee myself up And I can envisage an alternative history of myself where I became more and more closed down and less likely to go out of the house. And because of the great stress attached to stuttering, happened to me. And in 2009, I was at the situation where I thought I was going to have to throw my job and just stay at home and try and write or something and try and get books published and not talk to anyone. That would have been a disaster. And it was really because I was in that situation where I was staring disaster in the face that I realised I had to do something. And I understand totally that a lot of people who stutter and who stutter worse than I ever did find this thing the toughest thing to handle. Finding a job and turning up there every day, because it's so exhausting to stutter, and it's so exhausting to try and hide your stutter. And to be honest, I don't know that I could work full-time, 9 to 5, 5 days a week in an office. Even now, I think I'd like to try it again. I think I'd handle it way, way better than I did back in 2009. But I haven't put myself back in that situation. I'm teaching at the University of South Australia, and although there's some intense periods where I'm standing in front of 50 students or 100 students and giving a lecture and then giving a workshop, that's probably only 6 hours a week of that stuff. But it would still, I still don't know whether I'd want to do it 5 days a week, because I think I would still find it exhausting.
Got it. Okay, and just a couple of last questions. One is about your book, First Person Shooter. It's a fiction, and you also introduce there a person who stutters. So the main character, right, of that story. Why did it happen? Is it just the way to write a book, or was that some personal, need to really, get this out, this internal world of a person who stutters?
Yeah, look, it started off as one thing and became another. I originally wrote this as a film script. It was a black burlesque comedy about a violent black comedy about a taxi driver called Luke who lives on the edge of a small country town and gets involved with bikies. Jaden, the boy who stutters, didn't have a stutter to start off with, and he was just a minor character. Then when I came to write it as a novel, I wanted to go. I found that whole scenario didn't interest me so much, and I started rewriting the story from the point of view of Jaden, this 15-year-old boy who lives on the edge of a country town and has a rifle under his bed and loves gaming. And Luke went, the taxi driver just went, and it became Jaden's story. And there was a lot happening around Jaden. His best friend, the girl who lives on the farm nearby, her psychopathic stepbrother comes back to town to get revenge on the family. And Jaden finds himself at the end, of course, in a situation where he's got his rifle and he has the opportunity to save his the girl he loves, but it involves shooting someone. So, of course, it's not something you do lightly, and Jaden is going to struggle with, of course. And there was a lot going on in his life, including the fact that his mother had died when he was young. But at some point, I wanted to drag Jaden deeper into the dirt. This is something that Kurt Vonnegut was talking about when he was writing fiction in the 1960s and 70s. He was of the opinion that you really have to strip back your character. You have to grind them into the ground in order that the audience can see exactly what they are made of. And unless you do that, you don't really get to the core of your protagonist. And so I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, well, what can I do with Jaden? His mum's dead. You know, he's living on the edge of a small country town. He's bullied at school. And then I thought, well, you know, I know exactly what I can give him. I can give him a stutter. That will grind him into the ground. I know how to do it. I know how to write this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started rewriting it with Jaden having a stutter, and the words just came tumbling out. It just and that was interesting, because I think this was also another part of this journey I've been on. I think writing a story with a protagonist who stutters meant that I had to relive a lot of that stuff and had to deal with it in a way that you don't generally have to deal with. So the process of writing it down and reliving the horror of being 15 and having a stutter, I think is part of my self-therapy, that it allowed me to resolve some of the issues that I carry around and probably will carry around for a long time to come. But I have resolved a lot of them in a way that I probably wouldn't have if I hadn't written that story.
Got it. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, last question I wanted to ask is about the reading and writing. So I personally, when I start thinking, when I read the whole fiction book, and I realized that it's been a while, you know. I remember myself reading fiction books from beginning to end in my childhood, maybe like at school. But later, you know, when you get to this corporate world, you need to take decisions, you know, fast. And, you know, the whole world now is, you know, very fast, social media. So we consume information, you know, we tend to, you know, try to limit that information into small chunks. What would you kind of maybe advise, or where is kind of room for full, you know, like full-blown reading? How do you find time, or how do you advise people to find time for reading?
I've never had a problem with reading. It was my great escape as a child. I would read as much as I could. I was a voracious devourer of fiction. Fiction gave me my escape. I was an escape artist, and fiction allowed me to do that. So I've always read. I just love reading stories. Each story you read gives you sort of an alternative recipe on how a life could be lived. I find that amazing. I'm not sure what I can say about that. I think, but other than that, I think fiction can be an excellent way of escaping the more difficult aspects of your life, and it can be a really nice way of doing that and just getting some relief from the pressures and strains of everyday life. And I'd recommend it.
Thank you so much for this interview. I love this, you know, topic that you brought, that, you know, being active and creating your speaking situations will eventually improve your speaking and improve your, increase your confidence as a person. I love that. And yeah, thank you so much. We'll keep in touch.
Thanks, Andre. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
See you later.
Bye-bye. If you got free from stuttering or improved your speaking, or just have something to share, let me know. Tell us about your experience. Become part of this project. So, do you think it's possible to overcome stuttering? Is it worth trying? Leave a comment. For more videos, subscribe to this YouTube channel, head over to freefromstutter.com blog, join Free From Stutter Facebook group, and I'll see you in the next video.